there, Booksy, welcome back to my channel. Today I just want to make a quick video talking about the books that we were reading in January for the RunwrightReads book club. In 2021, the goal for the book club is to read books by Caribbean authors. Each month we're choosing a different Caribbean country or territory and reading 2 books from 2 different authors that are set in that country or feature the country in some way. The first stop in January was Guadeloupe, and the 2 books that we're reading: The Bridge of Beyond by Simone Schwarz, translated by Bray from the French, and Maryse Conde's The Wondrous and Tragic Life of Ivana and Ivana. And these 2 books, while they are set in different countries and also different time periods, they have some similarities in that one book kind of picks up on the story of the other. And I loved both of these, so I'm not going to talk too much about them in this video because I'm going to encourage you to read them if you haven't read them already. But I did want to just take a moment and honor these books and highlight them so you might feel more inclined to pick them up. I hope this video does that for you. So the first book that I'm going to talk about is The Bridge of Beyond by Simone Schwarz. Like I said, this is translated from the French by Bray. And this book talks about women, the history of a family, and we're looking at the genealogy of this family through the lineage of the women. So we follow one character who, when we meet her, she has just been emancipated from slavery, and so we're picking up this story in the 1800s in the Caribbean, and we are seeing what life is like for the people from the African diaspora, people who had been enslaved and now have the freedom to live the way they choose. And it's really interesting to see how this main character, or this character, it's interesting to see how this character lives her life, how she exerts those new freedoms that she has. And she makes choices that may not be what we would choose for ourselves, but we have to honor her liberty and the emancipation that she feels and exerts. And so I love that. I love that this book follows the lineage of women as opposed to the patriarchy and following the story of the men in a family. Here we are reading about the women and their daughters and their sisters. And while that is really interesting and very feminist, I also love the portrayal of men in this story. We see men who step in and shoulder the responsibilities of being a stepfather, taking on another man's child as his own and loving that child even more than the biological father did, because the biological father left. I think that Simone Schwarz does a really good job of showing the men in these roles. We see men honoring women and treasuring women and supporting women and loving on their women and protecting their women from gossip, protecting them from ire and jealousy of the other people. And so there's a lot of happiness, there's a lot of joy in this book, and there's a point in this book where I got to where I didn't want to read anymore because I knew that this story was just so beautiful at this point and that we were kind of being set up for a downfall. But I think Simone Schwarz does a really good job of showing the balance. She shows what life is like for people in this Caribbean country, this Caribbean territory. She shows what life was like for people who are poor, people who had inherited the vestiges of enslavement, and now that slavery has been abolished, are now finding their own life. And the lack of opportunities that they had, because although slavery had been abolished, there was still the kind of chattel lifestyle. There were temptations, I guess, to kind of yoke oneself back to the plantation because that was the only way to make a living, or it seemed like the only way to make a living. And so in this story we are seeing people trying to find another way, and whether they're successful and what success really looks like in this time. And so I love this book. I love the portrayal of strong characters and what maybe their downfall, and how they honor their choices, how they honor their opportunities, how they honor their lives the way they want to. And so I love this book. I thought it was really strong. And Then we have this one, which picks up on that legacy. So here, like I said, this book begins in the 1800s, goes into the 1900s, and in this one we are picking up the story in the late 1990s to the 2000s. We're following these characters, and so in this book, Maryse Conde is giving us the story of Guadeloupeans again. I hope that is their collective. In any case, Guadeloupe is a French Caribbean territory. It is not an independent country. It is still a territory of France. And Maryse Conde explores the politics of this region. She explores the politics of this time through the lives of these characters. So Ivana and Ivana are twins, and we meet them when they are in the womb. And we see their very close bond, their very close connection that they have with each other. Almost as though they see each other as the complement or the completion of themselves. And so they develop and maintain a very strong bond with each other, almost to the point of excluding anyone else. And so they're not really able to connect with their family members. They're not really able to connect with friends or partners in the way other people might. And so Maryse Conde, in exploring the bond between these twins, shows us a little bit of narcissism. Come, you're okay. The books are not falling the way you want them to. She's pulling down my bookshelf behind me. Sorry about that. So through the story of these twins, and it's really interesting because the cover has this yin yang symbol. We see the light and dark of these children. We see how people who seem to be raised in the same way or have the same background, how they grow up to be very different. And then she also gives us the kind of microcosmic look at whether a boy and a girl grow up with the same environment, because we see the different expectations that the family and the community have of the boy and the girl, and the different responses that people have to them. We have an immigrant story here as well, because while they are born and spend their early childhood in Guadeloupe, they move to Africa and to France, and so there's a little bit of an immigrant story, seeking after opportunities and the challenges that that brings, and the disappointment, and whether or not the immigrants' dreams can actually come true. The storytelling technique in this one is also really interesting, because Maryse Conde engages the griot storytelling format, that oral storytelling tradition that is from the traditional African culture, and she employs it here. But she also links to very interesting, she links to literary works in a very interesting way. Without spoiling anything, there is a character that one of these characters meets someone whose name is Ishmael, and he introduces himself. He says, "Call me Ishmael," which of course is the opening line from Moby Dick. We see these characters when they're traveling. They meet, or they go to places from literary works, and so they're on the cliff. They're on the cliff that is featured in the Count of Monte Cristo by Alexander Dumas. And so there is that literary nod, even while we are talking about the oral storytelling traditions. And so I think this book is brilliant in its execution. I think it's really interesting. I think Maryse Conde touches on a lot of political ideas, political concepts, and asks us to explain or to acknowledge to ourselves how we feel about those things. And so I think the book is wonderful. I think it's brilliant. Not everyone is going to love it, just as I think not everyone loves any book, but I loved it. And so I'm going to encourage you to read these books if you didn't participate in the book club in January. We are reading books from Jamaica in February, so read along with me. We're going to be reading Here Comes the Sun by Nicole Benn, and These Ghosts Are Family by Maisy. And of course, if you pick up these books at any point and would like to chat with me about them, I would love to discuss them with you. I really enjoyed these books. The other members of the book club, in our discussion yesterday on Sunday, January 24th, they also enjoyed the reading. some more than others, of course, but I would love to chat with these books. I'd love to chat with you about these books if you read them. So let's chat in the comments. And if you hadn't heard about these books before and are now looking forward to picking them up because of something I said here, would love to hear from you there as well. Connect with me on Instagram. I'm also over there talking about books. So let's chat in the comments. Let's chat here, there, and everywhere. And until next time, happy reading.